Hi, it's Larry Herbeck's Boxes, Major Nelson. Welcome to the Xbox Podcast. It's been a big week in Xbox land, and when it's a big week, we bring in the big talent. And Jeff.
Wow.
I feel like you chose a different loadout the last couple of weeks. You know, like last week was the Malik and Kelly loadout, and now you're like, all right, we're swapping out. You know, I need my healer and my mage in, and
is this the
Rebecca
tried and true combination?
Yeah, this is y'all are the tanks, right? You just get it done. We're just making it happen.
They were the DLC characters, and
yes.
sometimes you want to use the DLC characters because they got better animations.
Well, stop it.
All right.
But anyway, it's great to see Jeff. You were on the road last week, and Rebecca, you were busy last week, and now we can reveal why you were busy. Because you were involved in the Developer Direct, which was earlier this week. It was a fantastic show. So on behalf of everybody at Xbox, I know it takes so many people, but you were spearheading it on one side, right?
It's been a lot, but it's been a really cool process. You know, there are some really smart people at Bethesda, really creative too, and they did a lot of the kind of directing for, you know, what we wanted the event to feel like. And everyone was very clear that we didn't want it to be, you know, okay, this talking head and then this transition and then this person on stage. We wanted it to be the people who are at the core working on the game, you know, not just the executive producer or like the, you know, CEO of the game, but like the people who are working on a day-to-day basis, getting to say what they think is exciting and what they've been working on and to get to show it off themselves. And then everyone always loves extended gameplay too. So it's been really exciting. Like been waiting to, you know, kind of make sure that everyone receives it well. But so far the community response has been really supportive. So maybe we'll do more stuff like this in the future.
Yeah, we've got, and just to, if you noticed in the show notes here, we've got a couple of related interviews to the show coming up from the Developer Direct coming up later. Kelly, who was joining the show last week, we're going to talk about their new game that she worked on that from Tango Works, which is Hi-Fi Rush, which I actually have here. I've actually got it loaded on here, waiting to play on my console.
I got to do that now. We're recording this on Wednesday, and I went out to go pick up my kid from school, and when I left, it was not available, and now it is, and I am downloading now.
Let's take a look at Jeff downloading.
Very exciting stuff.
There it is.
Wow, there we go.
It's so cool.
Download. I know. I can play through cloud gaming. Why am I doing this show?
I think this is the first time that anything I've worked on has been announced and released in the same day. I don't know if you guys have ever had a same day release, but it's pretty stressful making sure no one spills the beans.
Yeah, I think we've done one. Definitely not with a game that I can recall, but definitely I think with some DLC. It is very stressful because a full game is obviously very different. So we got that. We're going to talk about Hi-Fi Rush later on, and then Jeff, you had a chance to talk with the design director from Redfall, which I'm super excited about.
The art director, yes, Karen Seegers, from Arcane Austin. I love Arcane games, and they always have like really unique look. You can look at a game and know, hey, this is an Arcane game. Right. There's just a certain way they do things. And so we talk about that. And it was great to see that extended gameplay, really talking about the different ways that you can play and the different things you'll be doing in the town of Redfall. And now I'm that much more. Look, they showed skill trees. They showed like weapon customization and things like that's the stuff I want to see. I love that stuff
that most gamers want to see, right? They're like, well, show me what's going on here. Yeah, look at this. This looks.
I'd already imagine like how you're going to be playing the game. So and I just need May 2nd.
I have an idea too.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Jeff.
let's all make sure we squat up on May 2nd.
I'm going to pause this here for you since you probably haven't had a chance to look at the skill tree.
Yes. Well, there's no descriptions here, so I don't know. But I love that there's like there's one more. Anyway, I just love that stuff because I will pore over those things before I choose who I'm going to use. Right. And I'm having a hard time identifying. She's got some really cool moves, that character with the umbrella. There's more of a distance shooter with a falcon or a hawk or a bird of prey of some sort. Some of the turns invisible. Anyway, I generally love Arcane games in stealth. Right. I think what makes them so awesome.
That's why we had you do the interview, Jeff.
Exactly. Okay, I'll stop talking now. I'll save it for them. I'll save it.
Yeah. But I want to see it in the interview.
It was good to see, of course, Forza. We saw a little bit of Forza. That looks like apparently your car is going to get quite dirty in this one.
But in the right places, Larry.
Yeah, it's like that's what people wanted the detail for, so they could see just how dirty their car was.
I'm looking forward to. I don't think I've ever told you this, but one of my next door neighbors is a car nut, and he plays Forza. and he's out there washing his car. He's one of those people that's washing the car every week and kind of makes you feel guilty when you're backing out of the driveway. Oh, I guess I should wash my car. Forget it. So
the best tweet I saw about that was, "Oh, sure, it's cool when cars get realistic dirt accumulation, but when I do it, I'm disgusting."
Yeah, exactly. So of course, Forza, we'll learn more about that coming up later this year. Minecraft, which talked about Rebecca, everyone kind of got a good sense for the gameplay in that one. That was fun.
Yeah, I think that's one of the exciting things about working on a team that's as big as Xbox is like Minecraft already has its kind of dedicated community who tuned in during Minecraft Live in the fall and saw a little bit about the game. But for a lot of Xbox folks, this is the, kind of our like core player base. This is the first that they're seeing of the game since we announced it last year. And so I think it was really great to get to show people gameplay and to kind of get a little bit more exposure outside of the Minecraft world. So that's part of like a little bit of the kind of strategy that goes on with our teams is like seeing like, okay, well, what kind of opportunities can we do with Xbox to get better visibility for our products? And so, it was cool. And so next week, I'm going to chat with someone from the team and we can talk a little bit more about what was shown. And, just right now, what we really want to talk about is our PvP, which is the first time that this is coming into the Minecraft universe officially, and then just kind of our vision for multiplayer. So more to come on that next week.
Couple things, of course, we talked about Hi-Fi Rush, which is available right now on Game Pass. Jeff is downloading it. I've already got
there. I got one more gig to go. So it's a svelte 15 gigs, which is some games are like 100. So I'll take
it. Yeah, nice.
Talked about that. We've got Forza Motorsport coming later this year. Redfall coming May 2nd. They dated it. We saw some Elder Scrolls Online. I know there's a ton of Elder Scrolls, and I'll talk to somebody from the team about that next week. That's coming in June 20th, and then Minecraft Legends April 18th. So dates, locations, times, games.
We got them.
What more do you need?
Pre-orders.
But that's so we've had a big week. And normally we talk about what we're playing and all the rest of that stuff. We'll get to that. But it was just such an exciting week for us. As Rebecca said, she's been spearheading a lot of our internal communications efforts on behalf of this show. There's been probably thousands of people working on this show, and it's been something. And we all love it. We love games. We love seeing the games. I know that. So this is a funny part about this, and Rebecca, you know this because you're so close to it. I didn't see the show before everybody else. I sat and just watched it just like everybody else. And there's something new and exciting about that. I don't know how you feel about it. I know, Rebecca, you saw the show a bit because you were so involved, but there's something kind of fun to just sit there and watch it with the rest of the internet.
Yeah, it was great because we had a Teams chat with all of our different folks who work on the communication side, just to kind of watch together and then chat and then react in real time. And it was awesome because so many people were like, "Wait a second, this is available today with Hi-Fi Rush."
Some people didn't know. Nobody knew. Yeah.
Yeah, and just the commentary between the team is really fun to see. So I agree. I wish it had been fresh for me, but it was still great to watch it for the 5th time today.
Okay, nice flex. Anyway, so that's got to. Jeff? What about you? You got any final words you want to say about the developer direct before we move?
No, I just really like the format, like you were saying, and so what I was doing during that time, we were getting a bunch of wire posts out. So if you go over to news.xbox.com, there's a number of different posts about all the different things that were announced and some things.
You mean this site, Jeffrey?
That's the one. That's the one. So worth taking a look at. Some pretty pictures and pretty words as well from our staff. And so we were getting those things up at we're watching the stream. We're like, which one is faster? Okay, YouTube. Oh no, Twitch is faster now. We're going to go to Twitch. And as soon as they showed the date, firing it off. So those are always fun to do. And it was just in real time seeing the Hi-Fi Rush respond. I was following along, just F5ing Twitter, and people were like, "That looks pretty cool. This seems like so." And then the reply to their own tweet was like, "It's out today." Yeah. And there was a lot of that, and I think that landed really well. We've seen that. I know we've been at E3 before in previous years, going back 15, 16, and occasionally you'll see a game do that. And everyone's like, "That's cool. I'm at E3. I can't play that right now."
Now you're home.
But because this was a at home type of thing, you're like, okay, let's do this. And so that really worked out well. Now, granted, that's that really only affects people in the industry, but in the room, when something is out that same day, the people that are seeing that news first are the exact people who can't play it that same day. So I just thought it was interesting, and the reaction was really good today because of that.
we're going to, as we said earlier, we got a couple interviews coming up later on. Jeff will talk about the design of Redfall. Excited about that. And Kelly will talk about Hi-Fi Rush. And later on next week, we're going to talk about Minecraft Legends, and we're going to talk about ESO, and then we'll get someone later on in the year to talk about Forza. So we got you all covered here. I mean, it's funny because, Jeff, you and I haven't really talked about this, but, prior to the pandemic, and even Rebecca, you've done some stuff with Minecraft. We used to do these big live shows at events and in front of people, and it was always really, what are you drinking there? Are you drinking Boss?
Yeah, yes, I'm drinking. Yes. And there's a reason for that. It ties into another piece of news, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Anyway, so yeah, just real quickly, I loved being part of those shows and doing those shows, and it was just a different type of show than what we have that we presented today. And I just love the format that we've evolved into, where it's just tight. It's talking to, the developers are talking directly to you. And that's why it's called Developer Direct. And then you get to see nice 40 minutes. Boom. I mean, I think it was even like 39 minutes with the total.
Yeah, 43.
Time. So it was tight. So lots of fun.
I didn't need to correct you, but I did. So, I can't let it go, Larry. I can't.
Do. I was going to let it go.
I couldn't. It's Larry. I have to correct them.
Anywho, Jeffrey, so you have a little bit of news for us, right? You got your boss. Is that what?
There is some news. So obviously there was those, but a couple of hours before the show kicked off, we got the confirmation on the release date, and for GoldenEye 007, coming to Game Pass. And by the time you hear this.
And if you haven't had a chance, I've done a great interview with Craig, the head of Rare, and one of the members of the team. Yeah, Craig Duncan. Awesome. It'll be on the Xbox Wire post that went up, I think, on Thursday. This is airing on Friday, so take a listen to that because there's some cool stuff there. So go ahead, Jeff.
Yep. So that's that is available the 27th, which may be the day that you're hearing this. So you should take. In fact, it'll be like late at night, I think, in the US. So by the time you hear this, you should be able to play it, which is really cool.
Yep.
So it'll be available on Xbox One, Series X and S as part of Game Pass. And I think this is a really nice touch. If you own Rare Replay, and remember Rare Replay that came out at this point, like 8 or 9 years ago to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Rare. This is made by Rare, and so they're including it in there. So if you bought the disc or the digital version, if you bought the digital version of Rare Replay way back when, you can download the game free of charge. So that's really cool.
And in fact, if you go listen to that interview, the producer, one of the producers on Rare Replay, is the head producer for this version of GoldenEye. So he's like, that's why he wanted to include it for many other reasons. So cool. They want it, and go listen to that interview because you'll find out.
Yeah, people have been asking for it for years.
They actually wanted it in there, but there was a lot of licensing issues they had to work out. So it's, as you can imagine, it was challenging.
So this is also just a great week for Game Pass. So we announced, obviously, Hi-Fi Rush into Game Pass, 007 into Game Pass, both of those. We knew GoldenEye was coming, but we didn't know exactly when. So now you've got all of that. But other games as well. Something that we had talked about quite some time ago, last fall, was that Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition was going to be coming to console. And we had mentioned the date, but it was a little bit ago. You're forgiven if you don't remember these things. I don't remember when my dentist appointment is until it's like the next day, because you got to schedule 6 months in advance. Like, why did they make you do that? Anyway, Age 2. January 30th. And it's really cool to see how they were able to adapt this RTS controls to a controller.
Yeah.
Right. And it works really well. I got to be part of the testing of this. And I was like, I don't know that I've played a couple RTSs that were decently done on console, but a lot of times they were built for console specifically to see a game that has been around for 4 years, something like that, built for PC, definitely since last millennium, to be adapted really well to the controller, I thought was really cool. And to play Age on a big screen in sort of a lean back experience, I found that to be like kind of relaxing and kind of like enjoyable, at least when you're in the sort of the resource gathering mode. Obviously,
right.
Stuff picks up once you're under attack, but really cool to see that. Other games coming to Game Pass or available now, depending on when you're listening to this. Inkulinati game preview, that's on January 31st. So I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but this is what I would say. If you enjoyed Pentiment's visual style, Incalinati, you're gonna want to try this out.
Yeah, I see that.
You see the picture there. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure coming to cloud console and PC. I will say, Rebecca, you are a resident anime / manga fan, so maybe check this out. Darkest Dungeon. This is a kind of an all-time classic in the sort of turn-based RPG strategy type of game that's out on cloud console and PC in first week in February. Grid Legends, Hot Wheels Unleashed, so plenty of different types of racing, both in the arcadey, but one more than other. And then last but not least is no, actually I read them. Oh, RoboQuest. That was the last one. Also into game preview on console. So a lot of stuff into Game Pass, but the big headlines were those surprises of GoldenEye 007 and Hi-Fi Rush.
What else you got there, Jeffrey? Well, that's a lot of news.
One other piece of news. And just because I noticed this, my favorite iPad game, probably of all time, actually just came to Xbox through Xbox Play Anywhere. Kingdom Rush. Kingdom Rush is also a tower-based tower defense game, and it was really one of the first iPad games to like really show like what touch gaming could do, and they're adapting that to console and PC as well.
Just say so. That's your favorite iPad game. Let's talk about that for a second. Rebecca, do you have a favorite iPad game? Or I think you're playing the one on your phone right now, right?
I mean, I have like some mobile games I liked, but
Snap.
Yeah, Snap.
I know. I was going to say I'll reveal a secret, which is that I'm on Android, and so iPad games. I've never had an iPad.
Okay, that's fair.
So.
That's fair. No, 'cause the reason I ask is because one of my favorite, Jeff, is Carcassonne, the original Carcassonne.
Oh yeah.
Before they had changed developers, the original one to me is. It is probably one of the finest iPad-y kind of tablet games ever made.
There was a period of time where I had a long commute. I was going from San Jose to San Francisco every day. I would take Caltrain.
I believe that's when you were working for the Sony Corporation.
Actually, it was in between. I worked. There was about a year there where I was working at a startup, and before I came here. Thank you, by the way, for that. Not sarcastic, like seriously. Thank you. And this was one of the games that got me through it. Was through that long train ride was playing Kingdom Rush. So it's just really well done. So I'm gonna buy it just to see how it's adapted and to support the team again because I really loved that one. Do we want to talk about what we're playing about anything? Do we have time?
I'm just working my way. I'm working my way through Vampire Survivors. I think I've gone through.
I love that you're like you've crossed over. You got over the hump.
I'm now. I'm all in.
And now you're in, and you're doing great.
I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm chewing away at it. Having a great Poe is my go-to. He's my go-to. He's the one that he's like the old guy with the cane that has like garlic around him. He comes in with garlic.
That's kind of like a biographical thing.
Hey, come on. Really? We're going to do that, are we? Are we going to do that? Go ahead, Rick.
Well, I still have yet to try that one. I've been playing One Piece Odyssey, which came out.
Oh, that's right.
2 weeks ago now. So I will caveat by saying that I'm not like up to speed on all of the One Piece things, like the lore. It's just such a long and extensive story. Yeah, I've watched a few different story arcs, and then I watched the most recent movie, which was interesting but disappointing because I thought it was going to be about Shanks, and it most certainly was not really. But so I wanted to try out the game. I also haven't really played that many Japanese games, and so I was like, Jeff loves these things. Like, there's got to be something to it. So, I've like seen gameplay of like JRPGs, but I haven't played one in a really long time. But then as I was playing it, I was like, oh, this feels so like quaint and then kind of JRPG-ish, and the way that you'll go from like. Their dialogue, and then something will pop up, and then the screen freezes, and then it goes to the battle scene, and then everyone's kind of bouncing and then waiting for their turn.
It's quite a production.
Yeah. Even the sounds are like Japanese, and I'm like, oh,
you're gonna have to play Persona then.
Maybe
invest 130 hours.
Well, so for One Piece Odyssey, though, I will say, I don't know if it would be enjoyable if you weren't like a fan of One Piece at all. I mean, it's really like campy, and like the humor in it is, I like the humor and kind of like the way that the characters interact with each other, the things they say. I do find the fighting to be a little bit repetitive. You know, I mean, there are a lot of different like moves and like different characters you can use, but it's not super difficult either. And it feels like I'm fighting a lot, at least in this first chapter. I do think that a turn-based like fighting system works pretty well for this game, because even in like the anime and the manga, it seems like the fights kind of go, you know, like with Luffy issuing an attack and then the enemy attacking, and then it kind of goes back and forth anyway. So yeah, I think that like the turn-based, like its system works here, but it's not personally my favorite style of games. I think I mentioned that about Midnight Suns a couple weeks ago.
Right.
So I don't know if JRPGs are for me, but I think the game is well done. I like the story. It's just, if you like turn-based action, then I think it'd be a really good fit. But for me, I'm kind of like, I'll give it a little bit longer, but just because I like the story and the characters. But yeah.
All right. Appreciate that.
It's a choice.
It's just my 2 cents. It's just my.
It's fine. It's fine. That's why there's right and wrong. I meant, or whatever.
Open your mind a little bit.
Yes.
I'm glad he wasn't here when I was talking about Midnight Suns. Wait, Jeff, have you played Midnight Suns?
Yeah, I'm a fan.
And you loved it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's very much for me, I guess I would say.
Okay.
And for a lot of other people as well. So, Larry, we talked about it. So can I talk about the thing that I got to do last week while I wasn't on the show?
Please do it, and then we're going to roll into the interview. So go ahead.
Yes. Yes, Boss Coffee usually makes a cameo in what my favorite series, Yakuza. And so there's an interesting spin-off to Yakuza called Like a Dragon Ishin that I was part of an event in San Francisco last week. The first sort of hands-on.
Let's be clear. I just want to point this out to the audience. Jeff is a Yakuza influencer and VIP. He was summoned down to this event, and the spoils of it all were placed in front of him. It was extraordinary.
It was great. There's a fan over here that I got to take away a little Ryoma fan right there. We go, right there.
Cute.
It's been hiding there in violation of embargo, which is now elapsed. So yeah, I got to play hands-on. And so this game is, imagine, you ever see in a TV show that you might watch, they always do like the Emmy episode, like this is the one that's going to win the award.
Yeah.
And like maybe all the characters, it's a dream sequence and everyone goes into some other, they're in Elizabethan England now. And it's like, and everyone's playing different characters, but they're kind of still them. Like there's shows do that. Okay. And this is kind of like that in a way, where all these Yakuza characters from like Yakuza 0 all the way up through Like a Dragon appear in this game that takes place in the 1860s in Japan. And the main character, it looks like Kiryu Kazuma, but it's not. It's this gentleman who is a real life samurai named Ryoma, and you follow him to find who killed his master. But so it's kind of like Yakuza-esque setup and gameplay and very familiar faces in a completely different setting, in like ancient, or not ancient, but like Kyoto back 150 plus years ago. And so it's still an open world game, a very dense town, but instead of going to like the karaoke bar, you're, going to a pub, and instead of going to the fast food place or the, like the convenience store, you're going to the fish market, or you're going to, you're even growing your own food. There's a whole like sort of very in-depth farming simulator in the game. So anyway, very much, if you're a Yakuza fan, you're going to want to keep your eye out for this. It's called Like a Dragon Ishin. It's out February 21st. I wrote up some of the differences, some of the things that are staying the same, and some of the things that are, of course, very different in this game compared to if you had played Yakuza 0 or Kiwami, or, any of the numbered ones, or even the Judgment games compared to this one. And that's over on news.xbox.com. It should be at or near the top of the page.
I'll see if I can find that, but thank you for that, Jeff. And
I also really want to try Boss Coffee now.
Let's,
this.
You've never had Boss Coffee?
They want to sponsor us, they can.
Oh, This stuff is
hold it up a little longer. Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey,
it's delicious and refreshing.
I don't know what they put in that coffee, but it is like smooth as it is just so smooth.
Milk and sugar mostly, and the rest is coffee.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Anyway,
all right, should we go into the interviews?
Would you mind bringing us into the interviews since Jeff and I have been doing all the yakking?
Yeah, sure. Yakking about Yakuza. So first interview is with John Johannes, who worked on Hi-Fi Rush, which is out now from Tango Gameworks. And then we also have that interview we chatted about with, or we mentioned earlier, with Karen Seegers, who's the design director for Redfall over at Arcane Austin. So let's dive in.
Hi, and welcome to the interview portion of today's show. As you guys might know, I'm Kelly, and I'm super excited to be here as a guest interviewee helping Larry out on today's podcast. You'll see that I am joined by a very special guest from Tango Gameworks. We have John here, who is game director on a title that just launched this week. Hi, John. How are you?
Good. Glad to be here.
Amazing. Yeah. So Hi-Fi Rush officially launched this week. It's very exciting times for those of you that tuned into the Developer Direct. And so we thought it would be a great opportunity to have John on, talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the game and, how they went about bringing this game to life. So, John, why don't we start with some of your history? Because from what I understand, Hi-Fi Rush is not similar to things that you may have worked on in the past.
Yes. Not only what I have worked in the past, but what our studio has done before. Probably our studio for making horror games, like The Evil Within, and Ghostwire Tokyo. But this is something that we wanted to make that was really kind of almost completely changed the image of our studio and also kind of pushed us as developers to what we've what we kind of can do or what's possible even in the game universe, because we wanted to kind of do something new. And that's kind of where the original idea, or that's essentially how I pitched it. But this game itself is just something that personally I always wanted to make for a really long time. And luckily timing was right internally that we just saw it as a nice palette cleanser almost from after we finished The Evil Within 2 to kind of branch off and try something new.
Amazing. And so after you wrap something like that, I feel like there are quite a few directions you can go in from horror. Like there's a lot of palette cleansers you could have chosen. Did you have specific inspiration? Was it 90s rock? Like what about, this kind of rhythmic action concept drew you to this direction?
Yeah, so early on, we just wanted something, like I said, it was almost like the opposite. So obviously we dealt with a lot of, heavy, dark imagery. And I remember talking to someone early on, and when we were releasing Evil Within 2, and they were like, your game, I really want to play your game, but like, it's just, I can't do it. It's just horror. Like I can't play horror games. And it almost kind of like struck a chord in me where it's like, why? Not that I love horror games and I play them all the time, but there are people who kind of like are, resist the image because they don't want to be kind of like scared or the stress of it. So I wanted something that kind of brought me back to, when we were talking about like my age, it's like of, when I really liked playing a lot of games. Like obviously I grew up in the 16-bit era, but, like I really was heavily into when you think the original Xbox, PlayStation 2, Dreamcast era there's lots of like very colorful, just bright, fun games. And I really pitched this as something where it's like, you look at this, it really pops out and it just looks like it's fun. And so that's where kind of the imagery of this game came up with. And then the idea of it being sort of like comedic and rhythm action came up very early on, because obviously I'm a big fan of music. Obviously the song choice here is influenced by what I listened to growing up. But I would always sort of do this thing where I would like walk to work, like listening to music and like walk to the beat. And so it was just kind of like a natural thing where I would be always kind of time things internally to like a music track. And you see things like trailers cut up to music, and one of the earliest influences we had was, and this kind of influenced this, like the direction on our sort of style for how we did things, was the movies that Edgar Wright as a developer as a director would make. And I know maybe people would compare this to Baby Driver, which is about music, but music tied to video, or, the images like very coherently. But actually this predated that significantly. And there was a scene in the original Shaun of the Dead that had them fighting in a bar to a Queen soundtrack that was choreographed to it. I don't know. Maybe you saw that. Maybe you remember it. But I was like, that was so cool. It was like, what if we made a game that was like exactly like that? And so that's how I kind of pitched it. And yeah, and that's like how just the idea kind of came to be. Many years while we were still making the original Evil Within, but it finally gave us a chance to kind of pursue that angle.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like as kids, we all had that moment where we were listening to something on the radio and looking out the car window, like pretending our life was something different, or that we were in a music video or something like that. Playing sports, for me, it was like listening to my hype soundtracks as, you're like on the bus going to compete. So music can definitely set a mood and, really set the tone for the day. So that in mind, do you feel like working on a more upbeat rhythmic game was a little bit of a different vibe than the production of like a horror game? Did you feel a difference in the team and the creative process, if you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. It's not that when you make a horror game, like everyone's really dreary and negative. I think because it is kind of like a dark imagery, you tend to, at least I personally, you almost joke around of like, hey, it would be funny if this would happen or something like that. But you're kind of limited to this sort of set thing of it needs to be, it needs to be frightening. It needs to be sort of claustrophobic. We need to have this certain mood. But I was like, what if we made a game where the premise was so ridiculous that we didn't have to think like, does it fit? Will it work? Or something like that. It's like anything can happen. And almost like, it has to be, if it was too real, we'd almost say like, that's too real. It has to be dumber. Like it's kind of like, is the kind of premise one to get. So we want to get people thinking of like, what's the most ridiculous situations we could think up? And then we can kind of push ourselves to this. So that is apparent. When you play this game, you'll notice that, we just went all out with these absolutely ridiculous situations. The setting itself is ridiculous. And we make fun of it a lot, of just talking about how stupid it is that, a person would have a music player injected in their heart, and has magical super robot powers and musical robot powers and stuff like that. And they even joke about it. So that was the whole thing. It's like, don't take yourself seriously and just go crazy with all the crazy ideas we can come up with, right?
Yeah, and there are definitely, from what I've seen, some very self-aware moments as you play, and some humor bits that are a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Is that kind of how you saw it tying into the characters, the bosses? Do you want to talk about that dynamic and kind of the comedy and humor that you'll see as you play through the game? Yeah.
So everything started off with like, I knew I wanted this main character that was like not a superhero. That was like very rough. The big kind of reference point we used was Scott Pilgrim, like especially the Edgar Wright Scott Pilgrim, because I'm talking about Edgar Wright as an influence. But it's this kind of like anti-hero in a sense, like in not that they're evil, but they're just almost like dumb. And then the idea of like corporate culture, something that like resonates with everybody, I thought was just the idea of these like mega corporations and how they're run. And obviously we talk about how we always think they're like super smart, or they're always like plotting and planning. But actually I think when you're involved in a corporation, that nothing is ever as smooth as it actually is. So we joked about that. And then we joked about the idea of like, okay, well, who are the bosses? And it's like, well, wouldn't it be funny if the bosses were actual bosses of the company? Like you would fight the actual bosses. And then that's where we started diving it up. It's like, what would be funny? It's like, well, everyone, like, what do we hate about like, or it's not hate per se, but like, what do we always like joke about with like marketing? or just like the development side or finance. And then specifically, we knew that we needed to make fun of ourselves. So there's a research and development department, which basically is a complete like gag on how we present the process of making games and stuff like that. Which, as you notice, it's mostly how we spend our budget and how we're very incompetent as devs and things like that. So it's in that sense, it is very self-aware, but nothing is very spiteful. Actually, we included the departments from, when we were talking internally, I would ask them, I was like, hey, what are some like terms that you use internally that like almost you can't stand, like from like a marketing perspective? I think one of my favorite things
is too real.
You get a nice like quote where it's like the marketing head is like, remember to thank your brand managers, the real heroes. It's like, things like that.
Oh boy.
There are some pot shots, I guess, but I think we actually take the biggest hit on the dev side. There's no hate.
Yeah, no hard feelings. There are times where my friends call it corporate Kelly, where I forget to switch from corporate Kelly to like friend Kelly, and they're like, "Don't corporate speak me. Don't be using acronyms in our day-to-day convos." Like, I'm so sorry. So I totally get it, and I can't relate to evil bosses because my boss listens to this podcast. So shout out to John. He's wonderful. But let's switch and talk a little bit about what it's actually like to play. So when someone, boots up the game, jumps in, the term rhythmic action and rhythmic combat is interesting, right? Because it can mean a few different things. And I think that like every time someone hears it, there might be a different game that they think of, but I feel like this is a bit unique where it's compiled a lot of different features. So what do you think it means to say rhythmic action for Hi-Fi Rush, and what can a player expect to experience?
Yeah, so this was a big keyword when we started development. So we always say rhythmic action or rhythm action with an emphasis on action. A lot of people take the rhythm aspect and think like, oh, I know a rhythm game, I'm matching up to a music track, or it's kind of very low interaction because it's meant to be like choreographed to something that's musical. But a big point is when you think an action game, you think sort of the freedom of movement. But a lot of times there's kind of like, we did a lot of sort of internal research of like how accessible we want this to be. And we knew that we wanted to be very, very accessible. And action games kind of fall into two lines, which is like a kind of a button masher type thing where it's kind of just, just hit X and you'll win, or like a super technical hardcore action game. And I was like, well, what if we can kind of make this very accessible while also making it just feel very good? So you don't have to be super, super well-trained and technical to actually feel like you're playing very good. So we thought of this idea of combining the idea of a technical action game, but simplifying it to just the beat of the song. So that's why I say action first, is because you're controlling Chai, you're moving around, you're attacking whatever attacks you want, but we internally make it so it matches up to the rhythm. So no matter when you press the button, it's going to land on the beat. So it gives you that satisfying thing that you normally think of when you think of like a trailer that hits. Like when they normally edit trailers to make it feel like, oh, everything hits to the beat, but then you'll see like a movie and it just, it just happens. But we wanted it to be like, no, that's something that I'm actually doing. So that was actually the hardest part of just sort of making that happen. But we wanted to sort of essentially create a positive game loop rather than negative. So when you think of a rhythm game, if you don't play to the rhythm, you fail. You have to start over. But here, you don't fail. It's more about actually doing things to the rhythm will give you an advantage, will allow you to do those combos, will allow you to expand your moveset and things like that. So that's what we always wanted to create, this sort of positive gameplay loop. And I think, again, it is a little bit difficult. I think our deep dive that we did in the presentation does a good job of sort of getting you into it. But it is something that we just can't wait for people to play, because once we've tried it out with a lot of people, we've seen people play it, and when they kind of just see the the premise and how it goes to like, oh, it's actually very simple, just kind of tapping the beat, and kind of getting over that instinctual like button mashing, like concept that most people have. You tend to get that sort of natural feel of just, it's very almost like casual, yet there's a depth to it of like, which attacks do I want to do at what time? Mm-hmm. So that's where that kind of that rhythm aspect comes with, is that, so that having control over things that are synced to the music, but also playing to the rhythm gives you a positive sort of gameplay loop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it almost feels like you're accomplishing even more every time you hit a combo, because you're on the beat and it reinforces that you did something right, or that you completed an attack. And I, for one, am super guilty about being a button masher. Even when I know combos and it's very basic, sometimes I just panic and hit a bunch of buttons. And so I'm very excited to spend more time with Hi-Fi Rush and actually game to the beat. So very excited.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to take up too much of your time today. I know you have a lot going on, and we're super appreciative of your time today. But I did want to ask, what is your favorite part of the game, and why is it the cat?
Okay, why is it the cat? My choices are very limited here. Well, yeah, I will say 808 is probably one of the highlights of this game. This always comes up because I personally, my family has a black cat at home. And every project that I've worked on or been responsible to, I made sure to have a cat. So I had to make sure we had to incorporate it somehow. So just speaking 808 in general, not only is it a kind of a tribute to my cat, who actually cannot speak or cannot like meow either. So our cat in the game really doesn't speak. She's like it's like a microphone essentially for all the other characters that are in the game. But the animation team did such a good job making these like little tiny animations of how she interacts with Chai, kind of just how she assists you in battle, or even just the fact that when you think of a cat as being supportive, like she's literally over your shoulder telling you where the beat is, to help you out. So that, yeah, again, we just wanted it to be as fun as possible. And our animation team just went crazy with doing these little cute animations for her, that you can play with her, and you have a hideout that you can play with her. So I will say that I think for a lot of people, 808 will just be a highlight, and I'm hoping that we can create lots of merchandise opportunities for and expand and make a lot of money of this. No, but I do, in general, I would say outside of that, my favorite part in general are the licensed tracks that we were able to use to make these sequences of the game. I don't know if I won't spoil all of them, because some of them are just like absolutely cool. But we have these sequences where basically we take a track, and we choreographed everything. You can do like a deep dive into just how we actually made these, because it's like super insane how much detail we put into that. It feels like you're playing a music video to some of these licensed tracks, where like the boss's attacks, the environment moving, everything is synchronized to like even the slightest guitar riff or like drum beat that's to these tracks. And even the way that a boss fight progresses matches with the choruses and verses and everything like that. And those sequences are what I think they just are like a cherry on top of what is essentially an already awesome feeling game. And these like awesome climax points.
Are any of the songs that are in the game the specific songs that you used to use as kind of your soundtrack of your walks and your time as a kid that inspired the game?
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely tell, obviously, the tracks span from like 90s stuff to like early 2000s. There's like a very sort of like range that we were trying to hit, that kind of nostalgia feeling of that time. Mm-hmm. And they are tracks that I would just constantly listen to, as well as like when I said I had this idea way in the past, I would keep basically like a like a playlist where it's like potentials, where I would feel like, okay, these are tracks that just like feel like I would want to like, it sounds incredibly terrible, but like, oh man, a punch landed here. I did that, by the way.
Yeah, I was like, as soon as you said a punch, something fell. I was like, what? That was not
Power
that
music.
Controller that
music,
fell was a paid actor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's like if a punch like landed to this, that would feel so awesome, and you'd like almost like try to choreograph these scenes in your mind. So that's what kind of led to the playlist, but then managing to figure out, obviously, licensing is a big deal, and then figuring out what actually works within the game. There's a lot of trial and error process to get, and I think the tracks we were able to get for this game are amazing and they work great. So again, I can't wait to see people play, but we also have that streamer mode for people who want to stream. They could play the game with tracks that match the same, climaxes and beat hits that essentially the game was choreographed to. But yeah, I think, we've got a great sound selection, and also our original tracks I think are amazing as well. There's a lot of music in this game, by the way. There's a ton. So
yeah, I'm excited to have certain songs stuck in my head for the foreseeable future, because there are a few bops that once they're in your head, they're there for a little while. No spoilers, but yeah, and it's great that you guys thought of the streamer mode as well, because I know that's a big deal, and we don't want to, when we talk about accessibility, like limit folks that can play and share. So great of the team. All right. So it's been amazing. I feel like you and I could talk for another few hours, but, we have places to go, people to see. Any last words? I didn't know if you wanted an opportunity to thank your brand managers while you're here, since, they're the real heroes, or any other parting words before we log off.
Yes, besides the brand managers, obviously this is a big surprise from our studio. So it's unexpected, but we are absolutely excited that people can just literally just go on Game Pass right now and just play the whole game. They don't have to wait. They don't have to think about the game, of what it could be. You can try it out and you'll know exactly what it's going to be. And it's a game that from our studio, we think it's the best thing that we've ever made. We think it's something that you really want to try. So we encourage that even if you have the slightest interest, I don't want to say I can't obviously guarantee anything, but I'm pretty positive you're going to enjoy this game. So we're really looking forward to all the fans that will come up from this, and whoever tries it, what they think about it. We're just excited that it's finally available.
We've been fortunate here on the Xbox podcast to have welcomed a number of developers from Arcane Studios in recent months here to the show. We had studio directors Harvey Smith from Arcane Austin and Dinga Bakaba from Arcane Lyon. They joined us last fall. If you missed it, they shared all kinds of interesting revelations on the connection between the Deathloop universe and its connection to Dishonored. That was awesome, and I'm really happy on a week where we have confirmed a May 2nd release date for Redfall to bring in somebody else. Karen Seegers, art director of Arcane Studios on Redfall. Pretty big week, huh?
Yeah, it's super exciting. It's great to have everybody to see more of the gameplay, and always exciting to announce our launch date. So
we hear the term art director a lot. And what does the art director do on a game like this?
Part of it is trusting every individual art team, but helping guide them and unify the art direction, the look of the game across everything. If you could imagine VFX, character art, environment art, all the way up to UX, animation. So it's just helping to have a singular vision to make every aspect of the game feel unified.
I would say in recent Arcane games, you can really see certain things, from a style perspective really come through. Deathloop and Dishonored, I don't mean this in a negative way, but tend to like muted palettes to a large extent, but occasionally something will pop out. I think of like kind of orangey browns in Deathloop, and I think of gray a lot for a place like Dunwall, and in Dishonored. From what I've seen from Redfall before, seeing some really bright pops of color in this dark environment is obviously in Eclipse. So I would love to hear like sort of like how this came together and where you decided we're going to see some really cool like bright purples and blues and red, of course, in Blood.
Yeah. Well, with a lot of the Arcane stuff, Prey, Dishonored, there's kind of a painterly style. Redfall brings a little bit more of that realism. We still strip out some of the high frequency noise and we kind of plus up some of the characteristic details of something. So maybe if you're looking at your gun in 1P, maybe some of those details are a little bit larger just to really pop that character. And then with Redfall, that juxtaposition of New England, quaint, creepy, but we've really used the word spooky. So I think that's where you're not muting the palette so much. So it kind of lifts. We're not full blown horror, right? So I think kind of having a little bit stronger of a color palette helps bring in that spooky mood versus horror mood.
All right, let's talk about what we saw. Let's talk about the game. And I would love to talk about what makes this an Arcane game. And, I think we had looked at, first impressions and people were like, okay, is this like a multiplayer, just sort of like horde shooter game? But this is an Arcane game and that means certain things, does it not?
It does. And some of the things that we love is you have multiple ways to approach something. So maybe you could go in the front door, but I guarantee you, if you look around a little bit and you explore, you're going to find another way that you could approach it. Then you layer in hero abilities on top of that. And, this time you could play up to 4 different characters at launch. So that's a wide range of different abilities that you get to explore to approach the environment. And now, on top of that, we're bringing in the ability to play co-op multiplayer. So then it's the combination of those different heroes' abilities complementing each other. And I'm excited to see how players use those in ways that we don't even expect, which is something I love about Arcane games. The systemic gameplay just allows for so much that it just all plays together really nice.
I love looking at YouTube after I've somehow creeped or, sort of somehow managed to make my way through a particularly complicated area in, games like Deathloop or Dishonored. And then I look and I see someone did it just radically different. And I think when you add the co-op, there's going to be things that we're just not even expecting. I expect to be playing with Larry and Rebecca and holding their attention for the month of May in general. All right, another art directory type of question. The trailer showed a lot of different stuff. We saw a lot of different kinds of enemies, the Shroud Vampire and the Rook, and there's a lot of stuff, locations, all kinds of stuff like that. But one of the things that I think, because it really matters what I think, right? Of course, it does not. But in terms of what stands out to me, at least in terms of an Arcane game, is the way the storytelling takes place. I know frequently we'll have recordings or written documents that someone might find, and they're always really interesting to dive into the lore. And I'm learning a lot about this alternate universe's whales. All they're very, very compelling, very interesting. But another really big thing that you see in an Arcane game is this storytelling where you look around and you're like, what happened here? And the storytelling is not expressly written down or spoken to you. You kind of end up piecing together what may have happened from the environment. So are there any details or anything that was seen in this trailer? I don't want you to spoil tremendous things or anything like that we should be looking at that there's really cool stories behind.
Yeah. One thing that I think is really fun is thinking about how things were, what happened, and then by the time you start the game, it's probably been a month. Now there's survivors, but there's also people that have become cultists, right? So they're they want to be vampires, or they're scared, and so they're helping the vampires. It's just fight or flight. So if you look around, you can see stories of, you maybe go into a house and see a progression. Oh, this used to be somebody that was my neighbor, but then they're a cultist now. They gave their neighbor's child to the cult in order to join them. You'll see writing on the wall that's starting to tell the story of them kind of spiraling. And they do often get a little bit of blood. I hope this is cool to tell. So they're in a slight trance themselves. So you'll see crazy shapes, crazy structures. It's like they're seeing and hearing things, and they're being compelled to build these structures and these effigies to these vampire gods. So if you are one that likes to explore, you can find how different people kind of progressed to become a cultist.
It's not a lot different than my neighbors, believe it or not. So the things that I have no idea what they're building on the other side of this fence. But real quickly, I would love to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we saw in the trailer that were sort of like mission structure, because it seemed like there's like core missions you're doing. There's also neighborhood building. There was this lighthouse mission that was shown. What can you share about sort of the variety of different types of experiences that we're going to be playing?
Yeah, the campaign is standard campaign. That's how you learn the high overarching story. It's how you progress through the game. But then there's, like you mentioned, the Take Back Redfall. There are neighborhoods to each district, and you at least have to do some side missions to take back parts of that neighborhood, because you get an underboss skull by taking back, you do a side mission, and that elevates to finding a lieutenant, and taking out that lieutenant gives you a skull, and you need a handful of those skulls and able to unlock the boss door. Right. So, and then on top of that, like you mentioned, the lighthouse mission, that's just an optional mission that you can do if you would like. So there's plenty. So there's a wide variety of things to do. That doesn't even touch on just the random encounters that you come across just running through the world. So.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. When you have like taking back neighborhoods, and then also the skill trees that were shown, like you're just like, you made this game for me. You plucked it out of my dreams and made it a reality. So thank you so much. And
Excellent.
The good thing is, we have a release date now.
So exciting. May 2nd.
So
it's gonna be
May 2nd, we're just a couple of months away, just over 3 months away from the time you're hearing this. So Karen Seegers, we're going to let you get back to work. I'm sure there's plenty to do between now and then. I can't wait to play it, but I can't also wait to have you or someone else from Arcane back as we're celebrating launch really before we know it. So congratulations on landing the release date. And now let's get back to the show.
Thank you to Karen, John, Kelly, and Jeff for those interviews. And Kelly in particular, it's great to hear from her. We have her on the show every now and then, and I've hung out with her a couple times. It's great to have other folks doing interviews besides just us. So
yeah, we love having people in there. You know who we have to do an interview is the little guy right behind you. He's stretching, and he's apparently waking up from his afternoon nap.
Hi, Pumbaa.
Yeah, he knows he's being talked to. What do I have to do?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good to hear from folks. Well, we're gonna keep going. We got some more interviews for the developer direct that we're gonna get ready for next week. We wanted to get those two for you this week right now as we talked to them. Great to hear about Hi-Fi Rush and Jeff with Redfall. Thanks for the conversation, Jeff, on Redfall. As I said, I don't know if I know I didn't mention it because I wasn't in the interview, but as I was listening to that, I was like, I'm going to be a little hypercritical because I'm, being from New England and spending time on islands. I'm going to be looking at this. I'm going to be looking at you, Karen, and what you've done.
I want Major Nelson's hot dog cart in there somewhere.
That is a thing.
Oh, that would have been a great Easter egg.
That is a thing. Maybe it's in there. I don't know. But anyway, well, listen, gang, I know, Jeff, you've got to run, and Rebecca, you've got some more work to do. Even though the show is aired, you've got more work to wrap up there. We all do. So thanks, gang. Will you guys be around next week?
Yes.
Or do I need to bring somebody?
Sorry,
I don't plan that far ahead. I might have a dentist.
I was waiting for Jeff to answer first. But yes, same time, same place.
All right, we'll come back next week, and hopefully we'll line up. Rebecca, let you and I talk off the air. We'll get some Minecraft stuff in for next week. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, gang. Hopefully you have a great week this week. Have a great weekend of gaming, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.